Hello and welcome to our latest video on the Celtic Star. In this episode, we're going to look ahead to the weekend's Glasgow Derby match against the Rangers at Ibrox. It's obviously a crucial game in the title race with the season coming to its late stages now. So I'm pleased to be joined today by David Faulds, David Potter and Matt Corr. Welcome onto the show again, everybody.
Hello.
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 So if I start off, if one of you wants to take the lead on this, I'll say basically looking ahead to the game at the weekend, who do you think the game is more important for? Because obviously Celtic have got the chance to go 6 points clear, and with the few games that are remaining, that gives us a big impetus in the title race. A draw, see, maintains the 3-point gap, but on the other hand, a loss, unless we lose 7 or 8-0, should mean that we're still top of the league anyway at the end of the day. So bearing all that in mind, who do you think this match is more important to? If one of you want to take the lead on that first.
I would put this another way, Liam. Would we be happy with a draw?
For me, I would take a draw, but I would like a win.
Yes, right, that's fair enough. Yep, but I mean, if I have to watch 90 minutes of sterile, boring football on my television on Sunday lunchtime, and I get a 0-0 draw, I think I'll be happy in the afternoon.
That won't be happening. No way. That's
now, why do you think that, David?
Just there's not going to be no goals in that game. I think we're going to go for it. They're going to be looking at their usual game against us, these long diagonal balls. You've got the referee as well, who is going to give it comes his way. Yeah, it doesn't matter who the referee is there, as we all know. So there will be goals, and if Celtic play the way we can, and the way we've played recently, apart from that European game in the Conference League, then we should have enough to win. I think we can win. But if any of us could go back any stage this season and say that with only one Glasgow Derby left at Celtic Park, we are still top of the league. They've got to come out of Parkhead. We can win the league, and regardless of the results. So in a way, there's no pressure on us. We've got 700 fans there. There's a lot of pressure on them. And Ange has the Celtic support. Even when we're not been doing well, the support has never turned on the team at any stage this season. That is not something that they can say. So if we're on the front foot, they're going to have a lot of problems when their fans get ugly, and they don't get much uglier than that lot.
Matt, what's your take on the game?
Yeah, I'm much the same. I rarely go into any game except in a draw. I mean, sometimes the Champions League you have to be realistic, but I never go into a game in Scotland looking for a draw, and we've certainly got enough in the armoury to go out, attack them and try and get the points, as David alluded to there, to try and put them under pressure. It's a great position to be in, get in 3 points ahead and knowing that you'll be top come what may, with them still to come as part of the final 5 fixture. So absolutely right. I think Celtic, in fairness to last 2 or 3 games, I feel, even if we haven't had the results at Ibrox, I do feel we've actually played a good attacking game, played all the good. Watching it from a technical point of view, I do think we look like, obviously biased, but I do think we look like the stronger side, the better side. So I do think we've got to go out, try and get that early goal, and try and get their crowd to either be quiet or to turn on them or whatever. And absolutely, we've got to go for it. Would having done that and given all the things that can happen in 90 minutes at Ibrox, having went for it and had to settle for a draw, not the end of the world for Celtic. But we've got to go out and try and make that gap 6 points at the weekend. That's got to be the objective for me.
Yeah, I agree. That's how I'd approach it. Because I think it's always dangerous if you go out and play for a draw, or have that in your mindset that we can settle for a draw. I mean, if that's the way that it ends up, as we said, we'd be happy enough with it. But I'd be a lot happier with 6 points clear. So, and I think, to be fair, that's the way Ange plays. He's not going to change, the way that the team plays. He has a set philosophy, and that's how we'll go for it. Because say if you go for the win, and you know, play well enough, then you'll get it. And then if not, you know, you can take a draw as a consolation. But yeah, it's you know, it's not really the right way to go into a game. You know, just playing for a draw. Let's see. Do you think he'll make any major changes from the team that beat Ross County last time?
Can I ask, the Celtic Star this morning tells me that Stephen Welsh is likely to be injured. Do we have any other injuries?
No,
I don't
that's
think
it.
so. And have we got through all these silly international games without anybody getting injured?
Yeah, Ange seems to have used his experience as an international coach himself to sweet talk the other managers, because very little Celtic activity last night anywhere. And Hatate made his debut for Japan. Apart from that, it was everyone was rested up. Quite a few of their players were playing. And there was the riot in the Nigeria game. And the what do you call the guy that came from Aberdeen? They've got that they think's good. I can't remember his name. Yeah, he played for Scotland. Come on at 2-0 to Scotland and managed to see out a 2-2 draw for them apparently. And so I think Ange has done well on that. And the thing about Celtic players could have had a chip on their shoulder on a little bit of an inferiority complex after the games last season. But after that game on the 2nd of February, and bearing in mind the majority of the team weren't involved last season anyway, and that's now gone. These guys are getting in there thinking all over the park we're better than them. And one thing which they've always had over Celtic, in my experience anyway, is we'd go to Ibrox with a weak goalkeeper. They would always have a reliable goalkeeper. That seems to be in our favour, because McGregor's at the end of his days and seems to be brilliant one week and totally accident prone the next week. And Joe Hart, nothing phases him now. He'll go there, he'll relish it. And so I think that's
I'm sure he will, David, but I still get a wee bit worried about Joe's reluctance to pick a ball up. I mean, he's going to come a really bad cropper with that one of these days. You know, I mean, he is allowed to pick a ball up, and he just want to do it. He prefers to pass it. Wouldn't it be so bad if it was the big hoof up the park? That would be bad enough. But he tries to pass it, and one of these days, I mean, it's happened. Well, he has made mistakes, and we've got off with it. But one of these days, I fear he's going to make a really bad mistake, and I hope it's not Sunday.
There was a game a couple of weeks ago where Joe Hart ended up in the right back position, and he played the ball across his 6-yard box to Carter Vickers, who had a man closing him down, you know, with nobody in the net, and then he had to play it across to Taylor, and I just thought it was a bit much at that point. But I know, like, obviously we have a philosophy, we have to play out from the back, but sometimes it does go a little bit extreme like that. But so obviously you mentioned Joe Hart, he's obviously a certain goal. Do you think the back four's pretty much nailed on to be Juranovic at right back, Taylor left back, with Carter Vickers and Starfelt in the middle? Would you all agree with that?
Starfelt.
All of them excellent. All of them got better as well.
Say again, David.
Matt?
I was just saying, I think the back four pretty much picks itself at the moment. Obviously, you've also got Anthony Ralston, who's a great attacking, if you like, option to bring on. But I think Juranovic played real. One of the features we talked a lot about Hatate for the last game at Celtic Park, and rightly so. But actually, I thought Juranovic on the night was outstanding. Ryan Kent caused us a few problems in the last couple of games. That particular night, I didn't think Joseph gave him a sniff of the game. So it's sort of quietly effective. One or two other folk commented on it as well, certainly. But certainly when you watch back the highlights, I'll always watch back the full game if I've won it. But just analyse it, because I can then relax and actually sit and enjoy it, which I did that night when I came in. I think I finished at 2 a.m. But it was when I came back in, I thought he did a good game at the time, and I came back in and watched it, the full game, played back. I thought it was outstanding.
For me, it's
real understated player. Juranovic, fabulous player for me.
For me, that was his best game in the Celtic shirt so far. There was one moment where the ball went right up in the air, came over his shoulder inside his own box, and he just killed it dead. And so he,
Yeah, no, yes.
that's why I've mentioned a few times with articles on the Celtic Star when I've made the case that Ralston should start at right back and Juranovic go to left back. But that's more, say, when we play against like a team that, you know, a St Mirren, a Ross County, a team like that will sit really deep, just because Ralston overlaps quite a lot and can get behind the defence. But say for this type of game, I think obviously Juranovic, like you said, the way that he just marshalled Kent, that's one of their more dangerous players. You know, last time out, then I'd just stick with that. And Ralston can only really play right back, so I wouldn't be changing it. And I don't think Ange will think that'll be his back four pretty sort of nailed on. But it'd be
I find that on our supporters' bus at least, Greg Taylor seems to arouse quite a lot of arguments one way or another. Those who like him and those who don't. What do you three think of him? I think he's all right.
I agree with Matt on Taylor, the same point. Taylor had his best game for Celtic against the Rangers that night. I thought he was outstanding. I also think that the new position with the fullbacks coming inside suits his game, because his biggest flaw was he could never cross the ball when he got out wide. And if he's not doing that, he's in a better position for the team, I think, now. So I think he's been excellent. So I'm quite happy with Taylor, and I definitely wouldn't take him out the team to play two right backs. I'd rather not do that.
Yeah. I would certainly keep him, yeah.
I think against Ross County as well, Taylor put a couple of really nice through balls through where he came from almost like a central midfield position, maybe slightly towards the left-hand side of the pitch, but it was like pushed further forward and played some real nice balls over the top for Maeda. So I think he, you know, a lot of the time, I'd say sometimes the criticism's deserved when he's not played so well, but then a lot of the time these things kind of get missed in a 4-0 win because everyone was talking about Giacomakis' hat-trick, and like rightly so, but I thought Taylor put some real nice passes through, you know, made a lot of good chances, and he could have even scored one himself. Actually, he probably should have done. But yeah, I'd say I'd be happy with that back four. But I think the midfield's where we've got loads of options. Do you want to go to David Potter? Do you want to? What would be your midfield three, assuming we stay with the usual three in midfield?
Yes, I think I would like to particularly pay tribute to Callum McGregor. I think Callum McGregor is one of these guys you can always rely on getting a good game, you know, or if he's not having quite so good a game, he'll do something about it, you know, he'll work hard to try and make sure he gets a better game, you know, and he says, I have a great regard for Callum McGregor. I don't know, I sometimes think that I'm better about, you know, I would think of who I'm going to have up front first, and then sort of, Jota, obviously, Giacomakis, and I would be reluctant to drop Abada. So I don't want one of them in midfield, or, you know, what are your views on that one? Anybody feel strongly about that?
I suppose the question with the front three is, do you start Abada after what he done last time against them and the amount of goals he scored, or do you stick with Maeda on the left and Jota on the right, as we've seen in the last few games where both have played really well? I mean, if it was me, I think I would stick with Maeda left. I think he's quite effective there, and Jota on the right, and then you've got Abada to come on. But I wouldn't be, you know, against anything that he picks. I mean, what's your thoughts, Matt, and say the other David?
Okay, well, I'll come in first. That's okay. I think when I thought about the team, there's probably two areas where I just had to sit on it for a wee minute. I think the back five pretty much picked itself, as did Callum. I think Callum McGregor obviously is pretty much a gimme in there. So the two rogues for me that, you know, also Hatate and besides Callum McGregor, the third midfield player, we just want to stick to the midfield just now. The third midfield player I'd have been would be Tom Rogic, but that's a real call for me between Rogic and O'Reilly, very similar styles. What Rogic has brought, obviously, a lot of experience. He's done it before on that venue. He's got a lot of experience, and I think I'd be tempted, assuming I wasn't aware if Tom had played in midweek for Australia, so I beg your pardon on that one. But assuming Tom is fully fit, obviously Ange sees what's going on in training every day. We don't. But assuming he's fully fit in the right place, then I would probably start with him. Matt Riley's a fabulous option to bring in. So for me, my starting two, all things being equal, would be Hatate and McGregor, and Tom Rogic playing slightly further forward. That's who I'd go with. I don't know about yourself, David.
I agree with you on the first two, but I think O'Reilly plays. Tom and Rogic injured against Ross County, touch and go.
Yeah.
He's a kind of guy that takes a while to get back up the gears again. Great player to have on the bench for this one. I just think O'Reilly on a high with the Denmark call up for the under-21s, and I think he'll start. And I think it's almost. I would be surprised if Tom Rogic is fit enough to play. I think he might make the bench, and I think Ange is going to go with 11 very fit players.
Yeah,
I mean,
to be honest, that's a good shout.
There's another argument I'd seen a few people say online about bringing Bitton in for him to play the holding role and push McGregor forward, and then you've got the choice between Hatate, O'Reilly, and Rogic for that third position. I mean, I probably wouldn't do that because I think it's a bit of like a negative move. I've probably people saying that are the ones thinking, you know, a draw will do. But do you think? What do you kind of think of that?
When Ange says he doesn't change the way they play, he does. What he does is he's brought on Bitton to see out games on numerous occasions, and he's the perfect player for that again. Starting too many red cards, and you know he's prone to that, and he had one at Ibrox last season, didn't he? So, or was that the year before? But I don't see that's not going to be Celtic going for the throats that Anne said, so I can't see that happening.
Yeah. I mean, he tends to slow the play down a bit as well. It would probably take a bit of zip out of our play, and if we're to go for the win, which you know, as we all said, we all, you know, want to be 6 points clear at the end of the Sunday night. Then, you know, a big part of that is, you know, to play with pace and get ahead early, especially in a lot of these games. You know, if you can get the first goal, it makes a big impact.
A wee story on Bitton for you, Liam. I think I told Matt this. I was at the game, the Ross County game, in the hospitality, sitting next to Danny McGrain. And if you remember, that Bitton had a shot, and the second half went miles over the bar into the Dockside stand. And I turned around and said to Danny, that was like one of yours. And as quick as a flash, Danny said, "Oh, I'd have been proud of that one." You're maybe a bit young to know what Danny's shooting was like.
Yeah, to get back to Tom Rogic though, I always think that Tom Rogic is a very good substitute.
Yes.
So how would you feel about starting with O'Reilly and giving him the first 60 minutes and then Rogic the last 30?
Yeah, I can see something like that.
Hadn't factored in Tom's injury. It seems that long ago for that game.
Well, it depends on his injury, obviously. Yes.
As I said, there was two areas of the team. Most of the team, which is quite unusual, but most of the team pretty much picked itself for me. But that was one of the roles where basically I could come to a coin toss. I opted for Rogic largely on the basis of experience of that venue. It's going to be a difficult venue in terms of hostile crowd and some of the other factors that can kick in. So, but yeah, if there's any doubt about his fitness, and even if there's not, if O'Reilly's the man that's given the nod, I'd be perfectly happy with that. As I say, that was one of the coin tosses. When you talk about the forwards now, talk about the second one, that was, you sort of alluded to it earlier, I think, Liam, is whether you go with Abada or Maida. My preference probably, again, having juggled about, I'd probably be tempted to start with Maida because of his work rate. I like the work rate he does. I mean, he's hungry. He's a man in possession at the minute. And I'd probably be tempted to go with him with Jota on the right, Giakoumakis for me to stick on, go through the middle. It's, even if Kyogo's fit, he ain't match fit, you don't throw him in. Giakoumakis' goal record recently. He's also a big, powerful man who can hold the ball up. It's a different type of target man, front man for Celtic. And certainly he's the guy in possession of his jersey for me. So for me, he's nailed on there. Jota as a starter, either left or right, and the only question for me was, do you start with Abada? He gives you dynamism down that flank. But I think Maida's work rate does it for me. And you talked about an impact sub. Abada coming on fresh legs after Maeda's run the legs off the the Rangers back division for the first hour or whatever. What a great sub to bring on, another guy that will just go at them. So in basic balance, I'd probably start with Maeda and keep Abada up my sleeve. But again, it would have been broken-hearted if he swapped that round. So I don't know about yourself, David.
David?
I don't. I mean that I agree. I think that I don't think it would go wrong with either option particularly. And sometimes this is going back a wee bit, but Hatate, he's. I know he had a brilliant game against Rangers in February. I mean, no doubt about that. He was absolutely outstanding with great goals and everything. But he hasn't done an awful lot since then, has he? Or is that just me being too hard on him?
I was thinking about that. I thought Hatate. He done all right against Motherwell in the next game, and then he had a spell where he had a couple of bad games. I thought he'd been a bit quiet, but then I thought he picked up again against Ross County. So I was thinking I'd start him, bearing in mind what he'd done last time and the intensity that he presses at and stuff. I'd start him alongside McGregor, and I'd go with O'Reilly. And then if it doesn't work, you can always bring him off and change it. You could bring Bitton on and push McGregor forward in his place then. But I think it's just he picked up in that last game, and then he's probably pretty fresh as well after coming off at half time for Japan. Although I don't know where that game was. I think it was in Vietnam. So he's obviously done a bit of travelling because they think they played Australia then Vietnam, but. So he had a few days to come back, and I just think, if you don't play Hatate, you probably would have to play Bitton for the balance of the midfield. And I think like Hatate probably is the best option for starting.
Well, that's what I was alluding to earlier on. Is what we don't see is the players coming back now. Obviously, the next couple of days, some folk will travel better than others, I guess. So I guess my team selection is based on all things being equal. No adverse effects of injury or lag from the travelling, because if that's a fact, you'll probably be away. When you see the team, you'll know if there's a factor, because I don't think he'll change it unless something else has happened. I honestly don't think he'll change much. You're right, the Rogic O'Reilly one, pretty much the 10 and 11 players. I think that's the 10 I think will have started, and I'll concede. For Rogic, he's probably
David made the point earlier about the Tom Rogic after half an hour. This 5 substitute rule changed the game, and so we're not really talking about the 11 players, because the game plan is going to be guys are going to be told you're playing for an hour, so that they can play that way. Then they're getting replaced. Certainly going to happen in the wingers. The 3 I would start with Maeda, definitely. I think in a way that maybe Klimala had a similar problem, in that he was the kind of player that needed to get in behind high pressing teams. And with this back, parking the bus defending that we're up against most weeks, that's hard. I mean, you've got his pace, very difficult for him, but he's done very well in adapting to make himself worthwhile to the team and win his place. So I think he could actually be crucial. Having that space for the first time in Scotland to use. I thought Jota was quiet in the game on the 2nd of February. He's got something to prove. Giakoumakis is terrified him that night. How he never scored is a mystery. And I think he'll get his goal. So I think that's the 3 Ange will pick. But I do think he'll bring on 2 substitutes up front. Abada will come on. Probably he'll be told, you're getting half an hour. Jota's going to be told, do it in an hour. And James Forrest maybe as well, another guy with a lot of experience. And that could be the way it's done. And on that 5 substitutes thing, the rest of the league, absolutely crazy to allow that, because it's just made it even harder to get anything against Celtic or Rangers.
I think as well, on the point about Maeda, I don't really like him as a central striker. I think he's done a lot better when he's gone out wide to the left, but he's also benefited a lot from Giakoumakis playing in the middle, because where he's a big physical presence, I think he'd really occupy Rangers' two centre halves, and then that should hopefully create a bit of space for the two wide players. Because Rangers quite a physical side, especially like players like Goldson. I think they wouldn't want to play against someone like Giakoumakis because he can match them, and then if he's occupying them, someone like Maeda should have a lot of room to use his pace and get in behind. He seems to find a bit more room playing out wide anyway than what he does, when he's through the middle. Say Abada, the point to bear in mind with him is obviously the amount of goals he scored this season and what he done against them last time, not just with his goal against them, but he terrorised their fullback. But then also he scored as well for the under-21s for Israel. I think it was last week.
Yeah,
so again, that was one from the edge of the box that he smashed into the top corner, like the far top corner. So it's that sort of question. I do think, personally, I would stick with Maeda, Giakoumakis, and then put Jota on the right, and I think that's what Ange will do. But that is a question though that you could make the case for Abada there.
It's a good point David makes about the squad game and not just being 11s. I say we've funded all about 3 or 4 positions there. The reality is all those players will come on at some point, and that'll be the game plan. You're right, Abada as well, I think it's maybe overlooked, but Abada's record coming in, he's only 20? Is he just 20, 19, 20?
Yeah,
He's come in this season, stepped up, I'm guessing stepping up a level in terms of the football he's playing. His record for goals and assists is quite incredible. And a guy like James Boris, another guy that does that, he does a lot of work, maybe not always screaming from the rooftops about him, but Abada's playing the team, he's effective. We've seen it against the Rangers that night as well when they get that third goal. He's not right to get that goal. He must have moved 30 yards in to catch them sleeping and nick that goal. Most other players would have given that one up. So yeah, he's another guy with a point to prove, and he'll be hungry. If he doesn't start, he'll be a hungry player to come off the bench. They won't really see that kind of pace coming on after say an hour. So I think that one of the pluses for me is certainly earlier on the season when we played at Ibrox. If I remember correctly, the subs bench was quite weak. I think we were really stretched at that time. Yeah. I do think we've got a better squad at this stage to address 90 minutes. So I don't want to curse us. I'm the prophet of doom, the ultimate cautious supporter watching from behind the couch. So I don't want to curse us, but we've certainly got a lot of strength and depth that perhaps we didn't have early in the season. And if we can turn up on the day and put them under pressure early on, nick an early goal, it could be a nice afternoon for us. So fingers crossed. I'm already nervous now you're talking about it. We should have made this call Friday night.
Do you think
mentioned it on the tours today? My stomach's been heaving ever since. Like a big kid, it's ridiculous.
Do you think that we'll see Kyogo at any point at all?
I think he might be on the bench to.
You think he could be on Sunday?
Ease them. I think he might make the bench, but I don't think he'll get on. I think he'll just be on the bench because of the psychological effect it will have on them, seeing him warming up behind the goal. So I wouldn't put that past. But I also think what Ange will do is he'll bring on somebody like young Dembele. And he did it in the last game. And, a young guy like that could come on fearless. And I think he's just about to break through.
Yeah. What about David Turnbull? Is there a future for him?
Absolutely. I think he's good for him. Yeah. And again, he's another one that could be coming off the bench. We didn't mention him earlier, but I don't think he's going to start. It's not.
No, I don't think he'll start. No.
Yeah, I think I kind of overlooked him earlier, just because I know he come on in the last game, but he's not played for so long. So sort of overlooked him, but he was a big miss at times for some of his long-range goals. When you struggle to break a team down, he can get a goal from 30 yards or so. But, sorry, jumping in, Matt. Say carry on.
No, not at all. I was going to say much the same thing. I don't think he's a starter for the weekend simply because he's just back, and for me, there's other players ahead of him in the queue. But I would not be surprised at all to see him come on, and as to a future, no question for me. Absolutely, I think he'll be a key player for Celtic. I think he's got a lot of talent.
So David
was at the women's game last Saturday, as was I. and it was a corner, and I was saying to the people next to me, here's a goal, because Fran Alonso's got them well drilled, and they score from set pieces all the time, something that Rangers do against us, against a lot of teams actually, and we're just, our corners, I mean, there's a stat on Sky with 30 free kicks from the edge of the box, and like,
I've seen that one, yeah.
and it's
We started to score though from corners a bit more lately. It's 3 in 3 games or something. We need to make sure we're tight. And the big thing
who
about
was taking the corners? It wasn't Turnbull, it was O'Reilly.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing as well from the defensive point of view of set pieces that I've been shouting about is not giving free kicks away in the first place. A lot of the time, someone like that's something Beton's guilty of. Giving away a stupid foul 30, 40 yards from goal, and then they can launch it in the box.
And bearing in mind, you've got Willie Collum as referee, and Willie Collum is a glory hunter of a referee. He will make controversial decisions early on. I mean, he's not a shirker from a decision, so he'll be quite happy to give free kicks on the edge of the box and whatever, and penalty kicks. And I'm not saying he's biased in favour of either side. I don't think that. But he's just, he enjoys being in the centre. He was like Hugh Dallas. Hugh Dallas liked to be in the centre of attention,
Eyes in the back of his head.
Yeah. Wing mirrors.
Mhm.
One of the other questions. One of the other questions I was going to ask you all about was, do you think the atmosphere will play a part? Because it seemed to have a fair impact in the last game when we were at home. I know there was no away fans, but there's pretty much none now, with only 700. Do you think that will play a part? Because I tend to think that it could actually negatively affect them. Because, if we go ahead, they tend to turn on their team. Even if it's level after half an hour, they might get anxious and turn on their players. But do you think the crowd will have a part to play?
I would say it'll be a severe test of Celtic's psychological makeup, and I'll leave it like that.
Remember we went there with the beach balls? I think we should go with the Crocodile Dundee hats and things, and we'll just drive them around the bend. We've actually got a ticket. The Celtic Star's got a ticket, and so Lubo's going. He's going to the game. Doesn't know how he's going to get there or get back. That's the next problem, but we'll sort that out. But so we'll have some coverage from inside and some wee videos, etc. for you, Liam.
Good.
I think the crowd will be a factor, but largely depends on how the game goes. If we can get off to a great start, it can be a huge advantage to them, as it was to us that night, because we came out flying. I actually think, I was talking to the tours today, I actually think we won that game in the tunnel. See when they came out and put the lights off, and the noise of the crowd was absolutely incredible. I think that game was won there and then. So David,
it was one of the best.
It'll be a big test to us, how we deal with that in the initial minutes. If we can get our foot in the ball, get started, bring our attacking players into play, and absolutely perfect if we got an early goal. It will be a test of them as to their crowd won't stay with them if Celtic's winning. So we did, and I think that's lacking. We've played quite well there at times in the past. Not get the goal, then lost the goal, and then it sort of fell apart a wee bit. The key for me, go on the attack on the front foot, get in that possession, get our normal game going. If we can get a goal, good, and then that actually might work against them. That's just my take. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but that's my take anyway.
And that's why you don't want to have like Beaton kind of scenario of doing the passive thing. That's what Rangers did on the 2nd of February. And they were overwhelmed by it all, the crowd, everything else, which is a bit unusual actually. But I think we play a normal game, we go there, even if they get their goal from a dead ball, courtesy of Mr. Collum, then I still think we've got a couple of goals, 1-2-1.
I'll just wrap it up before it gets to the 40 minutes on the recording. So just asking you all just to give us your prediction of the score. So if David Potter, if you want to start off with your prediction.
Rangers 2, Celtic 2.
What was that? Sorry, David.
Anyone disagree?
I couldn't hear you properly. What was it? 2-2.
Oh, sorry.
Was it?
Rangers 2, Celtic 2. 2 each.
David Faulds.
Yeah, 2-1 to Celtic, penalty to Rangers, and Giacomakis and Maeda to score for Celtic.
Matt.
I'm sorry, Liam, I'm going to disappoint you. I never ever make a score prediction for any game Celtic's involved in. It's between me and my God.
I'm going for 1-1, but I'm hoping I'm wrong and it'll end up 2-1 Celtic or any other result in Celtic's favour. Let's see, I'll go with 1-1. But see, I'll bring it to a close there just before the recording runs out. See, thanks, guys, for